A small country just told the most powerful economy on earth, no. Not maybe. Not let us renegotiate. No. And the United States did not see it coming. Here is what makes this extraordinary. Malaysia is not a superpower. It does not have nuclear leverage. It does not have an army that threatens anyone. What it has is something more dangerous in a trade war. Options. And for the first time in decades, those options were good enough to walk away from a deal that most countries in its position would have accepted quietly and moved on. But here is what nobody is telling you about this story. Malaysia walking away was not the surprising part. The surprising part is what happened after. Because the script that usually plays out when a smaller economy defies American trade pressure did not play out here. And the reason why is going to change the way you think about who actually holds power in the global economy right now. Stay with me. This one matters more than it looks. Welcome to Unseen Tier. We break down the stories reshaping the world in plain language. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell. New documentary every week. Let us get into it. Here is a way to feel this before we explain it. You have been working with the same supplier for 20 years. They are your biggest client. You need them more than they need you, and everyone at the table knows it. So every time they renegotiate the contract, the terms shift a little more in their favor. You accept it because what is the alternative? Then one day you realize you have 3 other clients now. Serious ones. Ones who pay well and do not attach conditions to every transaction. And suddenly the supplier who used to have all the leverage is sitting across the table with less than they think. That is the moment Malaysia just had. And it has been building toward it for 15 years without most people noticing. For decades, Malaysia was exactly the kind of economy that signs the deal. Electronics, semiconductors, palm oil, rubber. It built one of the most export-dependent economies in Southeast Asia, and a significant share of those exports flowed toward Western markets, primarily the United States. The relationship worked. Malaysia grew. Its cities modernized. Its middle class expanded. But here is what was happening underneath all of that growth. The terms were never equal. Western agricultural subsidies made it structurally harder for Malaysian palm oil to compete fairly. Trade agreements arrived preloaded with intellectual property conditions, labor clauses, and market access rules that consistently benefited the larger party. Every renegotiation started from a position where one side had significantly more to lose than the other. Malaysia absorbed this because the alternative looked worse. But here is where everything changed. China's Belt and Road brought serious infrastructure money into Southeast Asia. Not promises. Actual roads, ports, and rail. The RCEP trade agreement created a framework for Asian economies to trade with each other under terms they actually negotiated rather than terms handed to them. And the Asian middle class grew large enough that export economies no longer needed Western consumers as urgently as they once did. Malaysia was watching all of this very carefully. So when the latest round of US pressure arrived, and it came hard, semiconductor export controls targeting Malaysian manufacturers, palm oil trade conditions that Malaysian officials publicly called discriminatory, supply chain restructuring demands that would have cost the Malaysian economy billions to comply with, something shifted in how Kuala Lumpur ran the numbers. The cost of saying yes went up. The cost of saying no came down. And Malaysia said no. Now here is the part that most people are getting wrong about this. Malaysia did not say no because it is anti-American. It did not say no out of politics or ideology or regional posturing. It said no because the mathematics stopped working. The deal cost more than it delivered. The alternatives were real enough to absorb the friction. And a country that has been quietly diversifying its economic relationships for 15 years finally had enough runway to act on that diversification. That is not defiance. That is strategy. Slow, patient, deliberate strategy that just became visible. Here is why this hits your life directly. Not abstractly. Directly. Malaysia is one of the top producers of semiconductors and electronic components on Earth. The chips inside the device you are watching this on right now very likely passed through a Malaysian factory at some point in the production chain. When Malaysia's trade position shifts, the technology supply chain does not stay stable. It reprices. And that repricing moves downstream to the products you buy. Now at palm oil. It is in roughly half of all packaged food products globally. Soap, cosmetics, processed food, snacks. Malaysia and Indonesia together control the majority of world supply. When trade friction hits palm oil, it is not a farming story. It is a grocery bill story. But here is the bigger thing underneath all of that. When a mid-sized economy successfully pushes back against a major power and does not immediately collapse, it sends a signal to every other mid-sized economy watching. Vietnam is watching. Indonesia is watching. Thailand is watching. The signal is simple and electric. The old rules of leverage are changing. And once that signal is out there, it does not go back in the bottle. Now I am going to tell you the part that the pro-Malaysia coverage leaves out. Because this is not a clean win, and pretending it is would be dishonest. Malaysia walking away from US terms is a calculated risk. A significant one. America is still one of the largest consumer markets on Earth. American technology companies are woven deep into Malaysian manufacturing through supplier relationships, licensing agreements, and investment that does not disappear overnight when diplomacy gets complicated. A real sustained deterioration in this relationship does not just affect export numbers. It affects the entire foreign investment ecosystem that has powered Malaysian growth for a generation. And the alternative is not simple either. Moving closer to China brings its own conditions. Belt and Road investment has left other countries with debt structures that reduced their policy flexibility for years. The regional trade frameworks give Malaysia more room, but they also require concessions. Every option has a cost attached. Most critically, the people most exposed to this friction are not politicians in Kuala Lumpur. They are factory workers in Penang, palm oil smallholders in Sabah, electronics assembly workers in Selangor. Real people whose livelihoods sit directly inside these negotiations without having any say in them. This is not a clean victory. It is a bet. A smart bet based on careful calculation. But a bet nonetheless. And bets can go wrong. So where does this go? Nobody knows exactly, and anyone telling you otherwise is oversimplifying. What is clear is that the negotiation is not finished. Both sides have too much embedded in this relationship to walk away permanently. What we are watching is a repositioning. Malaysia is telling the United States that the old terms are not the only terms available. The United States is deciding how much that matters relative to its own strategic priorities in the region. What is also clear is that Malaysia is not alone in this moment. Vietnam, Indonesia, Thailand, the Philippines, all of them are running the same calculation right now. All of them are managing dual relationships with Washington and Beijing simultaneously, trying to extract value from both without becoming trapped by either. This is the new geometry of global trade. Not a clean bipolar world where you pick a side. A multipolar world where mid-sized economies with real leverage play both ends against the middle and win. Malaysia has been practicing this longer than most. The question is whether it has built enough runway to land this particular move safely. The next few years will answer that. Here is what this moment actually means at the largest scale. The era where powerful economies simply set terms and smaller ones accepted them or paid a price is ending. Not because the powerful economies got weaker. Because the smaller ones got stronger. Built alternatives. Built options. Built the one thing that changes every negotiation. The credible ability to walk away. Malaysia just exercised that ability in public. Deliberately. In a way that every other mid-sized economy in the world could see clearly. Some countries signed the deal because they have no choice. Malaysia just showed the world it had a choice. Whether this move pays off long-term is still being written. But the fact that it was made at all? That is already the story. Was Malaysia right to walk away, or is this a risk that could blow up badly in 2 years? Drop your answer in the comments right now. Genuinely want to see where people stand on this one because the range of opinions is wide. And if Unseen Tier is the kind of channel you have been looking for, subscribe now. Hit the notification bell. Every week we find the story underneath the story and break it down in plain language that actually makes sense. The next one is already being made.